Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Common Sense reading. My name is Jordan Stempelman. I've been running this reading series since 2011. I do it in person in the fall and here in Kansas City, Missouri, and then in the spring, I go remote. And so today we are remote, obviously, and we're going to hear from two amazing poets, Ryan Eckes and R.B. Mertz. And I'm just astounded by their work and a huge fan of how they both confront different types of injustices and just the screwed up nature of this planet, but also the way in which that they push poetry into places that just astonish me every time. So let me just remind myself that on March 8th, so a month from today, the next Common Sense reading will feature Ariel Francisco and Sarah Miner. I've archived previous readings on my website. Let me go ahead and put the link to the website. I'll put some links as we go through for the poets' works as well, so you can check out their work and buy their books. Following the reading, there'll be a brief Q&A, so you can post any questions you may have for today's readers in the chat, and I'll be sure to ask these on your behalf. And also, if the writers have questions for one another, that's enthusiastically welcomed. All right. So our first reader today will be Ryan X, is a poet from Philadelphia. His new book, Wrong Heaven Again, is available from Birds LLC. He is also the author of General Motors, Value Plus, Old News, and several chapbooks. Recent poems have appeared in Prolit, Wax Nine Journal, and Windfall Room. X has worked as an adjunct professor at numerous institutions and as a labor organizer in education. Please welcome Ryan.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much, Jordan, for having me read in this series. Um, it's great to be reading with R.B. Mertz. I'm going to read mostly from this book, Wrong Heaven Again, and I'm just going to jump into it. Keeping Saint Monday. You can always hide in the idea that no one cares. Kick around the desert, waiting for some chin music to come make it new again. When I think of the years, I think of a line across a page to erase history, and any love that could gut a house for good reason, my cold mouth in the wind like a kite as I return to work, park under same hard shadow where the ear of an organizer got sliced by ambition or the police. Hard to say, though it's understood we should just accept reality. Ronald Reagan and Mickey Mouse are the same after all. Your kids will turn out fine, unraped and voting for the rich in the dark. The good life won't stop for anyone. There are the tracks, and here is some rope. A rumor of piano with keys of brick in a cellar to play for funerals where we'll finally catch up and pretend our labor was our own, so that words are corpses too, and the sermon drones on, canning someone's struggle like a Democrat who won't win. We can play family until it disappears again, or we can exit the grave and become something else, just like that. A line across a page to step over, and a stranger on the other side to take us in. Here, sit down. Let me tear this fog out of your chest. Injury music. When they say nothing is free, they mean you work for me. When they say we don't condone violence, they mean you work for me. When they cart you off the field on a stretcher, thousands of little boss slaves cheering on your pain. The Super Bowl of Cheerios in a sink, this complete breakfast of losers. I wipe my mouth with a napkin. Everything is free. The anthem is a dead white prayer. Silly string in the street the day after. Waterfalls are not hair. States are not stars. What flag are you talking about? What do you mean by a nation? Do you mean the bruises all over your body? Do you mean the people who nursed you back up? Who are you now, all washed up? What else? The pure products of the liberal imagination do not exist. The sky is cash only. You drive the car to work for an earth of its excrement, some hard-pressed house in the suburbs, some bill.
You can't see, but everybody's clapping. Right?
Oh, thanks so much. It's a good vibe in here. This is called American Federation of Teachers. I became a teacher to pay my rent. An adjunct is not an apprentice, I tried to explain at debrief, a onesie with a logo pulled over my face at a desk in an office next to the young organizer who would get fired for succumbing to boredom, like the guy before him and the woman after him who failed to like her boss enough. We were trying to build a citywide union of academics, but nobody was an academic. That's not a real thing. Teaching is a job to pay your rent. Organizing can be a job to pay your rent, as anything can be a job to pay your rent. The union couldn't hear that. It was run by six-figured managers who pitted us against each other. They said, get out the vote for the Democratic Party, a bunch of landlords committed to our disposability. And that's where Donald Trump comes from. Home for academics. The sun's going down over here in Philadelphia. Home for academics. It is easy to blame workers for conditions created by bosses if you're a bootlicker. The Fox School of Business graduates proud boys and presidents of future for-profit enterprises, prepared to applaud your hustle and sell it for more. If the customer is always right, fascism always passes. A professor is actually a cashier, like most workers. No matter how much you believe in yourself, the currency of your individual voice bends toward the parking meter of someone else's career, and higher pay is not on the ballot. You may need a letter of recommendation after your neighborhood is bulldozed too, and exciting opportunities start opening up at the new stadium, the Stadium of Opportunity. Revolution begins with changes in the individual, said the English department as it disappeared. High occupancy vehicle. I keep getting ads to be an Uber driver, which reminds me of a term I learned in Chile for adjunct professors, taxi professors, and a poem by Russell Edson in which a taxi driver turns into canaries as his car flies through a wall and back out again. That's where I'm at, job-wise, a cluster of canaries flying towards you. In Chile, students started evading subway fares and it turned into a rebellion. Now their government has to rewrite the Constitution. In the US, fascists are wearing t-shirts that say Pinochet did nothing wrong. Republicans and Democrats have long agreed. So is the New York Times. Capitalism is the only way, they say, and some apples are bad. So the government keeps killing black people and jailing those who fight back. Every employer encourages you to vote. Your employer is running against your employer. They'll never pay enough. How are you getting home tonight? This is called New Year, New Trash. Another edition blocking the sunset like a teaching philosophy. Nostalgia for plastic bags. 100% chance of the cat watches the drug deals and sparkles. Another day in paradise, right, bro? We can pretend it's not about labor, like fake wind in an old movie. Don't leave your car running too long over a pile of dry leaves. On TV, senators read from a teleprompter like fourth graders reading from a book report. You can't laugh in court. That's funny. The committee found that the government tried to overthrow itself and failed. The boomers go boom, fuming at the lack of interest. I like to piss off the roof like a cloud. Each sentence evaporates into the next and lights it up. Deer in headlights will beat your ass in the afterlife. The next wolf of Wolf Street is learning how to reuse himself, like a good neighbor, like State Farm. New cars. Chevy Sacrifice, Toyota Priapus, Mazda Collapse, Honda Selfie, Nissan Ultimatum, Subaru Death Count, Kia Bribe, Buick Ennui, Ford Bible, Jeep Expulsion, Hyundai Strikebreaker, Lincoln Masturbator, GMC Meltdown, Dodge Sharp, Ford Shiv, Hyundai Coma, Tesla Fleshlight, Nissan Tax Break, Chevy Purge, Acura Legion. Reds. Incoherent Zionist barking and centrist gibberish, punching down at the dead who refuse to bless their killers. The flu. Affluent, having an abundance of goods or riches. Effluent, liquid waste or sewage discharged into a river or the sea. Hollywood. Keep your eyes open, said the rich kid, raised in a movie that can never be enough about him. Here's a poem in a different mode, a newer mode I've been trying to write in lately. It's the newest poem in this book. It's called Song in Malleable Time, after a record that my brother made. My brother makes music under the name QNDFK. He's got a band camp. Check it out. Song in Malleable Time after QNDFK. Wide array of used Santa suits for sale on South Street today. Bits of glass and parking tickets dress the curb for an album cover. I get carded in the same spot I snuck into 25 years ago. What's it called through the lens of a pigeon coming back for more? Why do we keep getting younger and younger and younger? The pixies come on and we get stuck in the eye of the song. The ocean wanted to drink, the sun spat out wings. When we rushed out without paying, I couldn't stop laughing. When work was nothing but waiting, time was a rubber band. You hear that train? It runs through the ocean. That strike in the heart of everyone you've ever loved. That summer we fell so in love, the ground gave way. What we all wanted but couldn't let each other have. Pour me another, I said to the customer. It's time to feed the meter. A gang of Santas in the rearview mirror. The second hand touches my nose. This car, this car is older than most careers, including my own. I peel off in gratitude. A gang of Santas in the rearview mirror. Every building has a chimney and a future. What we all wanted but couldn't let each other have. The wind sweeps my floor like a mother. That summer we fell so in love the ground gave way. Tongues of water reaching out of flowers. It always felt late then, as if on the edge of some rupture. Soon the job would stop eating the house and every move you made. I taped my brain to that summer like a rubber band. We were catching up to the past when you left. The wind sweeps my floor like a mother. I'm almost finished my beautiful soda. Smack dab. A man names a continent after himself, and the cat stares into the black hole on the screen, slowly reaches out her paw. Paris, Texas. Harry Dean Stanton in red cap, very parched, takes a swig of water from a plastic jug. End of the Oregon Trail of Love. At midnight on Oregon Ave, a One Nation Under God billboard flashes above the Sunoco station. My brother picks me up and we ride in silence. Music. Across the collapsed highway where we grew up wanting to leave forever. The word electricity is only about 400 years old. Before that, you were shocked by something else, some other kind of volta. A night blooming Sirius. The scent of the sun as a castle crumbled and people assembled in the rubble to become all one thing. This is called Heaven. I wrote my name down on the envelope and handed it back to the clerk, and it disappeared, the name. You saw me write it down. There's ink in the pen. What do you think just happened? What about the past, all that work? We were up by 10 points with 2 minutes left. I don't understand. The cop said, look, I don't want to play games with you. He said, who were your friends? I said, I didn't know them. They just showed up. It's important to move things around, knock down the walls so you can see. Sometimes the sadness in my body gets so heavy, I think I'm going to sink through the fucking earth. Then they show up to pull me out. Then I remember who I am is more than I could ever know, and that's not even the point. I didn't know them, they just showed up. Out of thin air, gushing life. No words, not a snitch in sight. Zoom drain. I wake up every time I try to take a picture in a dream. Last night I got sealed shut underground at a subway stop. The cops filled the exits with cement. They wanted everyone inside a statue. The state is a statue. If you call, he won't pick up. Thomas Jefferson wants to remain Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson remains Thomas Jefferson by reproducing himself. He just can't get enough. Thomas Jefferson is a hospital that bought a university. One time a scab chased me off the campus with his cell phone recording me because I was trying to organize workers. The scab wanted to prove something with his camera to his statue. Thomas Jefferson called me an outside agitator with his cement gray lips. But I was not outside of anything. As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on the sign it said no trespassing, but on the other side it didn't say nothing. I was a worker talking to other workers. We were workers talking to each other about what we want to be. Thomas Jefferson takes pictures of us working to try to turn us into himself. He makes videos of us talking and he rates them. We smile and pretend to compete with each other for a little while. Then we smash the cameras. I'm going to read one more poem, and it's more in the vein of that song in Malleable Time. It's called Bridges. The fire is central. Diane de Prima. You can't burn a bridge that never existed. Bite into the orange, it's yours. A stack of suns unpaid for. A queue of light. Trains are running 10 minutes behind due to operator unavailability. Here we are, late to paradise again. A strike was authorized, but the leaders cozied up to the boss. A strike was authorized, but they said, just kidding, no hard feelings. If you stay in one place too long, you remember everything you're not supposed to. A capitalist gets shot in the head, squirrels scatter like broken bottles. Justice is sudden and kaleidoscopic, no hard feelings. Fingers pointed in all directions, no hard feelings. Laughter out a car, the spring, sprung, springs, no hard feelings. Polysemous red sneakers, leak-free beauty. We pour through the doors and out the turnstiles. I trip and names dissipate where two rivers meet. The failures of the bosses melt off our shoulders, no hard feelings. Where two rivers meet, all careers disappear. A skeleton of rain cuts a hole through a door. We all stop pretending for the Drano of time. Love burns through the line. Each split second of organizing the forest splits into a forest of memory, spreading 1,000-fold, and the fascists panic, and the liberals panic. They try to seal off the city with hierarchy, but they've run out of careers. A stack of suns unpaid for, a queue of light. A frame is just a frame, you can smash it to pieces. Love burns through the line. The world grinds open like a fruit. The trains fly through, but not for commerce. What are they for? What is anything for? Thanks for listening.
Thanks for reading, Ryan. That was needed. That was needed. That was great. That was
Thank you.
really wonderful. Really wonderful. Um, I'm so glad that our second reader, RB Mertz, can be here, is here. I'm gonna put a couple of links in here of RB's book and three poems that we published in Sprung Formal. And that's when I was first acquainted with their work, and the students in the class were losing their minds, and we were so excited. And so I'm really thrilled to have RB here today reading their work. So RB, let me do something really quick here. I'll move the spotlight real quick. There we go. All right. So RB Mertz, they, them is a trans non-binary butch poet and artist. Mertz wrote the memoir Burning Butch about being raised inside the Bush-era right-wing Catholic fundamentalism that now occupies two seats on the Supreme Court. Burning Butch was a finalist for the Memoir magazine's Best Memoir Grand Prize. They also wrote the essay How Whiteness Kills God and Sprinkles Crack on the Body. Their first book of poems cut will be released May 15th. Well, I think it's already out, yeah, through Thread Sons Press. Recent work was published in Guernica Magazine, Arc Poetry Magazine, Powders Press, Bee Stung, Christian Century Magazine, Autostraddle, and another Chicago magazine. Mertz taught writing in Pittsburgh for 11 years and was honored to be a finalist for City of Asylum's 2020-21 Emerging Poet Laureate of Pittsburgh. On January 1st, 2021, they left the US for love, and they now reside in Toronto, Ontario, traditionally the territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Mertz teaches writing at Sheridan College and is at work on a new memoir, Boy or Girl, and a novel, The Triangle, both of which have been supported by the Toronto Arts Council. Please welcome RB.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you so much. I started out my day in the emergency room. I'm okay though, but I just got home. That's why I smoked marijuana at the beginning of the reading. I don't normally do that, but I didn't get to smoke my marijuana at the beginning of the day. So that's my medicine, and I needed to take it. um, and I'm so happy to see everybody who's here. So thank you so much. But yeah, as I did spend the day in the emergency room, I have not really eaten or had caffeine. So if I do act funny, like don't blame the marijuana. That's just it's probably more a lot of other things. Um, but yeah, I'm a little disorganized today. So I appreciate you prematurely. I'm appreciating you bearing with me. Normally I almost script it out, but today I have not done that. Um, I want to read from Sprung Forward, but I wasn't able to locate my copy, which is so beautiful to hold in your hands. I love Sprung Forward, but like Today I couldn't find it, of course, of all days, but I'm going to read it from the proofs. So thanks to Jordan for this, and thanks to Ryan. I got to read with Ryan like many years ago in Philadelphia during Occupy, I think, and then other times. And I think our work really speaks to each other, so it's nice. It's hard to follow. It's hard to follow that, right? That was so beautiful, and just like our beautiful sodas, like that's exactly what I want to do too. So I hope this is not a letdown after all that. Um, but yeah, okay. Now I'll just do poems. So this is called The Garden. Um, uh, yeah, let's just read it. The squirrels hide peanuts in the ground, certain of a future they can't have, a map. But every spring we find them. The death in the garden is and isn't an illusion. The surface changes, but it's all green underneath. This is the year we steeped in death, tea bags. It drained out of us from the heat. What we lived had dried, been gathered into the right kind of bag. We were grown, harvested for this, to bear witness, to let it bleed us, to say nothing. The herbs grew thick the first year. Second year, we skimped on dirt, thought we could do with a layer of rock. The herbs were too weak to laugh in our faces. They withered there, right in front of us. You reap what you sow and all that. That's about America. America, things are happening. It's stressful for everyone, except my mother, who's going on as normal. Everything's fine. Um, but this series of poems is called Feed, and it's about watching the world on our phones. Specifically, I started writing it in October of 2023. I get my years mixed up, right when the ethnic cleansing and genocide of Palestine was taken to yet another level. Um, and so this is about watching that on Instagram. And these were the poems that Jordan published. No one else wanted to publish them. Thank you, Jordan. Um, like I have a lot of them and I think they're really beautiful, but like nobody else likes them. So I really like it really means a lot to me that Jordan published them and put them out in the world in public during this time when so much censorship has been happening about talking about Palestine, and this are obviously about that. So I deeply appreciate that. Um, so Feed, this is number one. Also, these came from Kirby's workshop, which Leah was in. So um, thank you to those folks. Um, One, people are eating food for birds and animals not fit for eating in Jabalia. The photos are crowded with need. Joe Biden's fugly mug repeats, the bombing on a loop isn't working, but we'll certainly continue to bomb. His face blurs into a twist, a thrown shoe. Dolly Parton wearing gold cones for breasts. A power bra makes sure your power stays the right shape. Advertisers of frames, a tower of VHS tapes, all Forrest Gump. Sally Jesse Raphael talks to Ann Miller, and Ann Miller says something that makes all the ladies who look like her clap and smile, smiling and clapping infinitely. Two, look who they're putting on the front lines. Husbands on Reddit waiting for wives, busy swallowing merch, a sweatshirt bearing the cosmos, a poet's humble brag, the accusations of organ theft. Jeoma Ulo in a Palestinian skirt, ads for overalls, a dog, a cat sent to mom, and book plugs Ads for glasses, before and after dog birth photos. How full she was, how many she held. A book about a tragedy, a book about cannibalism, a kid looking confused. What does he see? 3. Whose body part is that? Don't carry it through the hall. We don't want the children to see it. An actress asking to sign a petition to save the children. Gatekeepers opening for submission. Ads for t-shirts. The numbers getting higher every day. A moved walrus's eyes. A woman who leaves a cookie outside for one particular squirrel. Tracy Chapman and Luke Combs clothed in reckoning, recognizing the weeping of estrogen. A Black man running from his triplets, laughing after their dad, reaching their hands up wide, 1, 2, 3 opening hearts reaching. The Guardian's map of the destroyed country. Mossab says there's no more animal feed in North Gaza for people to use. This is a book about, or a poem called January about kind of about being queer. So that's a good time to read it. January. Smoking in the winter, there's no avoiding the ruin. The roses keep their thorns. The drama queen, Miss Havisham's pressing, insisting themselves to visibility among the rubble. All their possibilities over. And what a relief it must be to come to a natural end, to let your growing cease, to close your eyes, shut yourself. But the green persists in the starry phlox, the snapdragons, the ivy, the conifers. They bet on futures. My bourbon is good. Crazy to be out here in this cold. The dog water keeps freezing. People go by making jokes about how stubborn I am to keep smoking, keep standing outside. My phone shows an endless parade of people refusing to give up, refusing to die. They say I'm stubborn too. My mother always said, my father always said. He's buried and I refused to grow out of him. I moved myself on penalty of death, transplant. Afraid of death? We're always making out. We're the kind still got our thorns to grow more out of. You think a little cold can stop us? Okay. Thank you, sweet, beautiful Kirby. Totally wrote those poems in Kirby's workshop, and which I needed, and which reminded me that about how to write poems. So thank you. Okay, so Ryan has so much great adjunct poetry, and there's just very rarely do you get an occasion to read adjunct poetry. And so here I am. I am going to read some of mine. And so a couple of these are a little wild because they look like this. There's like poems over poems. And I've never read them by myself. We did a great, Kirby and Barbara Tran and I did a great reading of them where we all three read them in three voices, and that was really awesome. But I'm going to try to just kind of read the lines that pop out to me and see what happens. So there's three of those. They're kind of short, and then there's another adjunct poem, and yeah. Then we'll probably be at our time for questioning and discussing. So this is called Dear English Department number 124. Dear English department, I keep trying to write sincerely. I submitted my materials to you. I thought it was just me you were treating like this, a goodbye email, elegy. When I was very, very young, we had a whole meeting about it, and the fat grit of the academy clogs up my craw. My hair was longer, my jawbone. Did you know I was a Leo? I had that being young vibe. You saw me wrestle a lion. You saw me sink my fingers into the eye sockets and skulls of our enemies. There was a march, then a movement, articles on articles. I thought there was something here about logic, about ethics. It's funny the kinds of things you'll fall for when you're a kid, which wars you'll sign up for. That's the part about pathos, the passion. Doesn't mean passion. It means suffering, to suffer over something. She spit on her fingers into my eyes, made me kneel, said I had a good body. One day I told her where my power came from, and when I was asleep, she cut it off. Dear English department, I thought about asking you out a few times, but my bad teeth and that bump on my shoulder, I can't afford the biopsy for, and the smell of my shitty apartment, and the ceilings always hitting my head, and the holes in my everything is everything. I don't identify as a bottom, but when you spend your whole career at the bottom, you really start to understand about bottom lines. I washed off your footprints every night. No holes in your soles and so many gritty heels and Doc Martens, even the Doc Martens of my friends. I know you did the best you could. So did I. Dear English department. Oh, I like to say before I read this one that Philistines, which is an expression for barbarians, people who are not civilized, of course, uh, Philistines comes from Palestine, from Palestine, right? So it's very specific. Um, and of course, there's some very specific stories about it in the Bible too, so that are, very interesting to look at. But one is Samson and Delilah, and they're the theme here in this series. Um, Samson, of course, was an Israelite, and Delilah seduced him, cut off his hair, and then he tore down these columns. He was blinded. It's very dramatic and sexy. There was a very sexy version of this made for TV when I was a child that I watched. And it impressed me deeply. So it's a forbidden love. It's like war. It's everything, right? Okay, so dear English department, you sent me into all those rooms alone to kill Philistines. I cracked their heads. I blew their minds, made them bite down hard on their bullets. I ground my axes into them. Love is a battlefield. Love is a four-letter word. Love conquers all. Hundreds of years later, the conquering is not over. I brought a knife to a gunfight trying to contain what we can't contain in four letters. My mom says we're speaking different languages, and the news is the news and the news, and the police and the school kids alive and dead and dead and dead and dead. And we're gunning for them, me and you. You know that one about killing the messenger. You know all those ones about killing. Uh, it's harder to read those poems alone than I thought. So they're better on the page, I have to say. Um, so yeah, I gotta buy the book. Um, this one is called Job or Job, depending on your pronunciation choice. Um, Edge of human and seasonal exploitation across fields, dads shine electricity from cars, a rural deer family portrait with a watermarked target. To be repeated in these forms only follow what is highlighted outside of which holds the side you want to put your finger into the fire, but the fire is the darkest place est night outside mall full of deer heads on baseball hats signifying heterosexuality. For dollar, mounted replacement eyes, see what I mean? The element of choice. becomes fuzzy. A fawn emerged from the woods. The man raised her like a dog. She seemed to strangers a thing no one had named. No heart, no song. She bent her nose into our hands like a prayer toward food and history. Friendship doesn't exist. On the internet, it's complicated. The deer are infringing on the human spaces. The adjuncts are infringing on the healthcare control, birth, latex, organs, beat, hip. Weak mothered deer drops young into forests of compositions composted. I leave my body versus what the mouth does, the hands do, the brain and a Ziploc frozen heart taught by trauma of pointed guns, flexing manhood versus Highland Park restaurant versus faster food, cheap class versus course versus room versus car versus deer, a body across the windshield. You don't know what you got till it's gone, honey. Bees, for instance. The platypus, the friend dressed up as a lover part time, like adjuncts don't exist. No one exists part time. But what is lit up versus what is burned, what is branded into the skin or the ink pushing flesh into a word or a number, a symbol of who is hunted versus who is haunted versus who is driven into the street or what or who makes a choice or who makes the cut and how you end up falling or jumping into or off of the track. Um, my beautiful wife is here. So this one's for her. And I'm happy to be in a room full of people who are not educated in French as I read this poem, in which I have to read uh, 3 words in French, which is makes me feel very self-conscious. And in Canada, they make me feel bad about it in my mind. Um, Not in real life, but tout est possible. Like, see, it doesn't sound good when I say it. It sounds so nice when French people say it. But this is a tattoo I have on my chest. I can't show you, it's too low. But it says it's everything is possible, and it's graffiti around Toronto. So I moved to Toronto, some would say impulsively, after 2 dates to marry this woman who's visible there, Mary Beth. And it worked out really well. And now we have a baby, and it's really happy and good when I'm not in the emergency room. But it was really amazing, right? Like she was like, "Come, don't don't be a criminal and have health care and marry me and live." And now we're in danger, right? But anyway, this was when we weren't in danger as much. Um, so two has it's all possible. That's the poem. I don't like it, looks prettier on the page. I don't want to say it. Once in a lifetime, you can carve your favorite into your chest if you hold your breath long enough. You'll remember the fists, the fascists clenching around you. It's that old bike feeling you remember. It'll come back. It just takes a few years, applications for us to live together legally. I have a degree in this language. What about them is what I prefer, but you know how it is. You find yourself across another line, another country in love, and suddenly you can't not believe in countries or love anymore. I only identified with being un-American, but the guy recoiled, really recoiled in the pot store, not because I was trans, but when I said I'm American. But I just couldn't get it done. Oh, I tried to kill myself, one less American, but I just couldn't get it done. You know how you can tune into the lyrics and how the beat can get inside you like blood thumping, and how a wrist, a neck, or a song can bring you to wanting to be alive even though you never. You think this baby inside my head belly will know I am who I am? My wife calls, says, my ex-wife calls, says my pronouns should be thee, thou, says everything is dissimilar and crazy, like love is like a baby. The point of us isn't for you to get it. The point is just that two means two. It's not a metaphor. It's not limited to what you can understand or me. A lot of people learned a long time ago that all the books aren't as important as the word on the street and the words spray painted all across your city where you brought me to live and stay alive are. I'm gonna read thanks. Inaudible collapse. We gotta make a word for this. The beauty of the inaudible collapse. I want to read a poem for Tiki, but god damn it, I didn't I was in the emergency room all day. But I'm gonna read this one, which is for Aretha Franklin, but it can also be for Tiki. Um, Take care, TCB. What where's the good news? You heard what happened yesterday and the day before and the day before between the radio saints, making you look closer and closer and realize you were blind. You've got to let somebody spit in your eyes and stand on the other side of a line and let somebody tear the beams out. This summer was rough, and the other seasons too, realizing what power covers and for how long. Somebody said whitewashing, and everybody understood. How many people will sing nonsense and for how long and how loud and how the body can do what you tell it and not what it wants and tell you you liked it. And how you had to keep asking for it your whole life, working and working, how you never got to stop asking for it. I just want to read one more. And that is, yeah, The Coming Insurrection, which is after Charlottesville. The metaphors are coming. The top stories are feeling it too. That mad dash for the door and no door, and the angry blank faces coming for you. It depends on what box you fit into. If you can turn your eyes away, you do. Till you're hiding under a desk like a kid in an American school. I know you want why you want to turn away and how your neck gets stuck that way and how you can't face everything that's true with your face between a sidewalk and a boot. But the metaphors are coming. They're coming for you. The stakes get higher and higher. They've been coming for years, shouting about who they are and carrying fire. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, RB. Amazing. Just phenomenal. Thank you so much.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
That was great. I listen, so we've got some time for some questions. Let's put all our noggins here and I will look in the chat. If you all have any questions, please put them into the chat. Like I said before, Ryan, RB, if there's some question you have for one another or just, anything you want to say, great. Uh, Maybe I'll start this off and say something that's something I just really admire about both of your work. And when I thought about pairing you together, it just seems so natural to do so. And it has something to do with the way that you navigate um, like opposition and protest through satire at times, through this amazing way of where you kind of skim past the cynicism, where I get stuck in the cynicism or the morass, whatever. I just get, lodged into it. And I think you all have this amazing ability to um, be as intensely serious as one should be about a lot of the things that you're talking about in the world. But then you bring in this type of levity or satire. Um, and I want to know about that. Like how do you find that? Is it somewhere where you go really dark and then that's where you locate that humor to take us out? I'm really curious to know how you find that weave, that tone in your work and because I think it's really admirable. So that's for both of you and whoever wants to go. Or if you and remember any question I ask, if you're like, I don't know anything about that, skip. You can always
Alphabetical order?
Um, well, Thanks. Thanks for that's a thanks, Jordan. That's a great question. And I think about humor in poetry a lot, actually more than ever over the last few years, and I've been writing, um, trying to write funny shit, you know. But I do struggle. I've always struggled with, I don't know how to. I've always been interested in writing political poetry for like 20 years, right? And I often feel like I'm stuck in, the cynicism of political realities, right? And then, so I've spent many, many hours. I write by hand, I fill notebooks, and a lot of time, I've spent a lot of time being stuck and thinking like, oh, I feel like I'm just banging my head against the wall, trying to say something that's not just beating people over the head with shit that they probably, they already know. So, I end up thinking about audience a lot and then what I am getting out of by trying to um, answer some political question. Um, and I guess humor, satire is a way of um, trying to see things from a new angle, in a new light. Um, and I don't have a formula or a go-to. I'm always, trying to find a new form. Um, but I guess I always come back to trying to I like to arrive at a new thought or a new idea through the process of writing something. And it helps me to be silly with words sometimes in order to arrive at that place or create characters, mess with different voices. So it usually ends up being some kind of process of me pulling my own self um, out of the poem in order to get to something that um, is pleasurable.
Yeah, I think about like the poem that you read with the really hilarious updates of car manufacturers, makes and models, the Chevy
A
Sharp.
prophetic poem.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And how like that might just be all on its own, this kind of relentless way of raising it into this state of humor. And then the next poem, you might start with this very direct, deadly, clear-eyed accusation. And maybe in that poem, and then you'll shift away from that, knowing I think there's something about how much we can take from the political realm we become before we pop, before we, or look away. And I think there's something there that I really love how both of your works um, keep me as a reader looking longer than maybe I think I can, and how that might transfer itself into that political sphere again or something. RB, anything about how you bring in humor or respond to it or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's my therapist tells me it's a way of coping with trauma. So and I think that's just true on a literary level as well. Like, and I think like I love poetry. I love writing poetry. I love reading poetry, but I also really love movies. And movies really influence and TV influence my mind a lot. And I like the way that movies can blend so many different kinds of emotional reality. And like the more like we're watching Transparent right now, which is just like this incredible show. And Eileen Miles is a character. So that's just very meta and weird and interesting. But it's so much, it's like about the Holocaust and it's funny and it's about being trans and old and it's funny. And it's just like it that juxtaposition really fascinates me. I like juxtapositions of all kinds. And then also a friend of mine in grad school who I won't give credit for this because he turned out to be a terrible person. But he said stand-up comedy is like poetry, poems are like jokes. And I don't know if he invented that or if that's like something that everyone talks about, but that has always uh really stayed with me. And he said like you have to just uh with a poem you don't make people laugh at the end necessarily, but you're making people feel something at the end. And it's kind of the same recipe of like we're combining things and then we're creating meaning in this little sphere, and then at the end you're gonna know what it all means together. Um and so I like to make people laugh at readings too, because it makes readings more fun if you can hear the laughter. And if people feel okay to laugh, because sometimes people feel like they're not supposed to laugh. Like, was this supposed to be funny? Am I supposed to
Well,
laugh at the
I
poem?
know,
You
and that's
know?
the thing. Like in these remote readings, I know that I can see in the different squares the laughter's going on. There's probably more laughter in online readings than there is in
Maybe,
in-person
yeah,
readings.
because
But
people
You
then,
don't
might be right,
feel
yeah.
yeah, but then
conscious.
we
Yeah.
don't get to hear it as readers. That's the irony of it. It's like
Yeah.
people are, you know, I guess more apt to take the lead on their own laughter, where sometimes with a poem, I think the best poems, sometimes you don't even know if it's supposed to be funny at that moment, and people might be hesitant.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to do a reading where you just unmute it. You have everyone's unmuted.
Right.
That's
See
my
what
dream.
see
Yeah.
what happens.
Oh, something will happen, all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we Jordan's still traumatized over that situation that occurred before.
It was
Yeah.
a doozy. Um,
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So I mean, Arby, I know you obviously are writing longer poems, right? I mean, Cut is a book length long poem, is that right? Or
No, that's just it's a collection, but there are some long poems in it. Yeah. But then the feed poem that I read, that one is
how many
yeah,
sections?
like a kind of a long poem.
Is there more than three in the in
Yeah, there's like 30.
30? Okay. So Ryan, do you write any longer, like book length type of stuff or um
I have in the past, but not recently.
and so I ask because I'm teaching a class on the long poem.
Mm.
and and they're going to go on walks each week, and they're going to have prompts, and they're just going to walk and write and come back, and we'll talk about long works that they've read. Like they're going to read, Schuyler's Morning of the Poem in a couple weeks, and they'll read Nature Poem by Pico and things like that. So I'm just wondering when it comes to maybe, and this could be about just a book itself, how you maintain the inertia when you're writing, even if it's in a long poem or if it's in a collection. How do you maintain that inertia? Is it a daily writing practice that lives on its own, or are you then kind of going back into the mine, as I like, or going back into the location of what you've already done to kind of look it over to move forward? What do you use to generate your work, either in a long poem state or just in a manuscript state?
Do you mind if I go first, Ryan?
No, please go
I
ahead.
have like a specific answer to this question for those poems that I read today. Um, because I was like, so I just had a baby like 3.5 months ago. So, and big part of my writing practice, as I've already discussed, is taking my medicine, the weed. So I was in a real, I've been like all over the place with my writing because I was unmedicated and had this alien in my body, and it was very interesting and weird, and now I can write about it. But at the time I was like, I don't know, it was very specific and weird. But I when I was watching well, I was in Kirby's workshop and we were given these writing prompts all the time. And one of them was to look at Instagram. And I can't remember exactly what the prompt was now. And I don't want to give it away here for free. But um but it was something to do with like looking at what came up on your feed and responding to it. And so I started writing those poems, and it was just so perverse what was on my feed. It was so easy in a way, like the editing of them and crafting of them is maybe not easy, but like, um, but it's just like what shows up on my phone, make a list of it. It's disgusting and it's weird and it's interesting and it's odd and there's all kinds of meaning that you can draw from it, um, without having to sculpt it too much, like, so that became a way that I wrote poems when it was hard for me to write. Like, I would just like take out my phone and I would write down in a notebook like some words to summarize whatever post I was looking at, and then the next post and the next post. And then I would just kind of transcribe that. And then in the transcribing, then I would like craft it more as a poem, and kind of create something out of it. But it was so rich. Like it is really, like that juxtaposition thing that I like, is that's what social media is, if you have an interesting social media, like if you have a good algorithm going, then it's interesting, right? If you don't, if it's just cats, then it's just cats, but um I
And then
don't
you've
think
got the scroll that can go on forever. So how did you know when
that's
to
the problem,
go
Jordan.
away from that? Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then I was like, maybe, I mean, of course and that was the other perverse part of it. It was like, oh yeah, this is gonna keep going. Like this isn't gonna be like a military action that has an end, and it won't be like my chronicling of this particular thing, because it became just totally impossible to keep doing it. It was too awful. And like and it was just like, okay, yeah, there's more of the same. Like, it was not like there were new things popping up. It was I mean, like there were, it was
The survey's done. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I ended it kind of just when I ended it, and it was for a while, it was like I should do that again, and keep doing it. But I just it it felt wrong after a while.
Sure. Like that's understandable for sure. Ryan, what?
I just want to say I I loved what you the from the project that you just are talking about, RB, that you read from about Palestine. And I just want to say that I loved and really appreciate that you did that and you wrote that. And I also understand. I can easily imagine having that kind of feeling had I, we've been living through truly awful times and watching that genocide unfold on the internet on a daily basis for the last year plus. I've never experienced anything quite like it, but I think that writers should try to address and document, what the fuck is happening. Be like, this is what is happening. This is how I'm experiencing. This is what life is like right now. And what life is like right now is what I got from RB's work that we
Mhm.
heard today. And it's what I got from your work a dozen years ago at Occupy. You were very funny, entertaining, politically driven, leftist poet. And anyway, I just wanted to add
Thanks,
those
Ryan.
thoughts there.
Back at ya. Funny, like it is mind blowing, like, right, because that was part of what was going on with the genocide. It's like people are just acting like it's not happening. And that's how I felt for a long time about things politically in America. Like there's just all kinds of things that people pretend aren't happening. And when you find a writer who's like actually addressing the things that are happening now and they're writing now, it's so like uh truly enriching, That's what writing is for, I think.
Yeah,
So I appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions in the chat? Oh, here we go.
Ooh,
This is a doozy.
serious.
I like this one from Anthony. Given the focus on quote unquote work and labor and resistance in a few of the poems in your readings, I'm curious, what would each of you say is a good side gig for a poet while they work on, quote, making it, or quoting Mertz, insisting themselves as a poet? Adjuncting, advertising, nonprofit organizing, etc. Further, how have jobs adjunct to poetry influence your practice? This is a great question because I met with a student the other day and I said, one of the things that upsets me so much is the failure of imagination in the MFA programs where they just have you teach thinking that's all you can do is to then go back into higher ed where you would think the MFA would also teach you all of the ways in which you could use this degree in ways that were never even considered before, in ways that you could, instead of just perhaps, going towards adjunct work, which I did for over 10 years. So I love this question. So that idea of if you were to say to other poets who are coming forward, what other gigs perhaps would you recommend that they move towards to find meaning? Because I mean, I think that's what we're looking meaning and not living at the poverty level, which that's what adjuncting is for.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. Except that I married someone who has a better job than I have ever had. So now I don't live at the poverty level.
So
But
Mary, that's one.
yeah, that's one.
Mary,
That's one.
all right.
But you want to go, you want to go right? I took the other one first.
Sure. I mean, I wish I knew the answer to that question. I guess I would say anything that leaves you enough energy, anything that you can tolerate and do that leaves you enough energy to be creative is good. I adjuncted for 18 years. I don't do it. It's been almost 2 years since I've taught. They stopped giving me classes right after the multiple schools I worked at. And I have a lot of strong feelings about higher ed and adjuncting and that kind of labor exploitation, which you can read about in my last book. But I do think, there's definitely something to be said for doing a job that gives you some kind of meaning, though, right? You're talking about hours of your life. If you can manage to find something that is rewarding in some way, then I think that can only be good for a person. Um, I've worked I've worked as a union organizer, and I did that for a few years. I worked as a full-time organizer. I got burned out because of the hours. I did a part-time for a while also. And for the last almost a year, I've been working in a 9 to 5 job. It's been good in a lot of ways, except I wish I had more free time. But I'm working for the Philadelphia Department of Labor as a labor compliance investigator, which is interesting and it's new work. And I am investigating employers who commit wage theft and trying to get the money back for the workers. But I've had to figure out how to like carve out time in different ways so that I can keep writing. And that's taken me many months to sort of figure out a sort of rhythm. It's like, all right, at this time of the day, I'll have enough energy to write a few lines. So anyway, that's all to say. I I don't know what the best, yeah, whatever leaves you enough energy, do that. And then when you get tired of that, try to find something else.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, you're obviously doing it. I mean, because you're continuing to put out really great work. So,
My advice is to try to have the lowest overhead possible.
Hmm.
Like the way that I lived in Pittsburgh before I moved to Canada was I found the cheapest apartment I could. And it was terrible. It was truly terrible. And actually, what I had several terrible, very cheap apartments, but it was just like every month I just had to make that much money. And I also let go of any kind of, I was like a monk. I just like tried not to care about being able to buy stuff. And that like because it truly, I would rather like, and I will be working until I am dead, right? Like I will never stop working because I will never have a retirement, right? Like I do not make good money at all. Like, don't have any illusions, Anthony. Like, my job just ended actually, because the department like imploded. So they didn't renew my contract. So I'm either a stay-at-home mom or an unemployed dad. Either way, I'm doing that for now and writing my book, my novel. But like I think it's just like do something you don't mind doing if you are going to do something like adjuncting. I hate adjuncting. I hate the systems of it. I get really upset about it a lot a lot, but I love teaching. Like I love teaching so much that I actually like if I have to teach till I'm 100, I'll probably be okay with it. Like I'm not like, oh no, that'll be a terrible like life for me. Like if I'm teaching composition, I've found a way to make even teaching composition joyful. But like if you're doing what you like to do, then it's not as terrible, I think. Like if you are going into it expecting like health insurance, for example, or to be treated with respect at your workplace, or to be given any kind of warning before losing your job. Like it's terrible working conditions. It's truly terrible. Um, but I still don't regret making that my thing that I like have the most on my resume, because I love my students. I still love them when they're not my students. They're on my Instagram, they're like out there. So yeah, if you like doing it, I think, and you can kind of figure out how to live, um, then do whatever that is. And then you can write poetry. Like if you like construction work or something, or you like gardening, or you like anything that you can make money at, then you can do that. And then you can also you won't make money writing poetry, I don't think. I mean, well, I don't think, right?
You may, but
Even people that are really amazing at it don't seem to like, make tons of money at it. Like, I don't think.
there's a liberation in that as well.
Yeah.
Listen, I just want to say thank you again to both of you for being here. I mean, RB for, navigating a horrible day into being here because it's really it's just wonderful to hear you read. And I want to say to everyone who's here, again, this recording will upload to YouTube tomorrow at some point. Please share these because you know, there's such a growing archive, I think, and people kind of maybe have this Zoom burnout still or this feeling of, oh, Zoom, ugh. But these have been some of the most vibrant readings, and they're so much different than an in-person reading where you don't get to really do this as intimately. I think you can make anything better. I think that's what your work, both of your work shows. So you can make anything better if you care enough and if you put enough into it. And so, anyway, I just want to say thank you all. Hope to see some of you next month. And have a great evening. Take care of one another. Thank you all for coming and thank you to today's readers.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, Jordan. Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for attending and listening.
It was
Really
great.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
It was great. Good
Great
night.
turnout. Thank you.